Yeah.
We're not exposing any of that.
Man of the hour. Now.
We'll put it here for now.
Let's hurry and get through the technical stuff because it's about 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And then we'll let you good with that.
Got one
We can eat
minute.
while John gives us his talk.
All right.
Not yet.
Oh,
We gotta get through the technical stuff first. We got 1 minute.
Ooh, memento. Did that come through, Joe?
We have to be official in here for a minute.
I'm just curious.
Check.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah, we are gonna have to.
Nope. Never mind.
I didn't even think about that.
I heard a ding.
But we
I
are
got
gonna-
it twice because we missed it last week.
Oh, we did, huh?
Give it 20 more
We
minutes.
said it in our minds.
All right, let's get going. Are we recording still?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out to the March 12th Western Weaver Planning Commission meeting. I'll go ahead and excuse Commissioner McCormick and Commissioner Wicker until she gets here. If y'all wouldn't mind standing, repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I forgot to excuse Mr. Keo. He didn't want to grace us with his presence tonight, so. First item on our agenda is the minutes from our February 13th meeting. You all got them in email. Did you read them?
I did. I didn't find anything out of place.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve those minutes then.
So moved.
A motion, do I got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes. Okay, next item, public comment for items not on today's agenda. Everyone's staring other directions. I guess they don't want to talk to us yet. Remarks from the planning commission. Anybody got anything?
Utah's done good. We're number 3 in cost of housing. And the average income in Utah is 48 grand. Good luck.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations.
I would say that our field trip last week was very beneficial and gave some really good perspective. So whoever
good.
whose idea that was and
Charlie.
yeah, it was.
That was Andrew's.
Really
Andrew and Brent.
No.
I just happened to put it together. And I didn't even do that. I just asked the developer to put it together.
I enjoyed it and they gave me a new and fresh perspective on what can happen in Weaver County. So thank you.
Good.
Okay. Director,
No comments?
Quinlan, you want to take Liam's spot? Got anything for us?
What's that?
Want to take Liam's spot? You got anything for us?
No, I'm not gonna take Liam's spot.
Well, you could have just said, look, yeah, say no comments today and you'd have got paid for it.
No, I told Liam I might step in, but I'll get in trouble.
He's being paid on a different route today.
Yeah, I told him he could double dip.
That's okay. He pretty much said what William says.
Yeah.
So we're good.
No comment.
No comment. All right. And I'll accept the motion to adjourn to our work session.
So moved.
Motion, do we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we can eat and then we'll listen to what John has to tell us.
Ladies first.
Go ahead.
I'm okay with that. You are.
Oh, no, go ahead. You're fine.
Well, look, he gave us our own.
All right.
Sounds
I don't know what we got.
It'll be pineapple. See if I can share it.
What do you got? Here's one.
Mine's looking better. Let's see what else we can do. There's a good one.
Here we go. And what's this? That one is peppers and.
Watermelon.
Sure, sure.
I think.
Charlie's gonna
that's,
talk a lot. I'm sure he needs one.
vegetarian.
You want one of these?
No,
Yeah, you do.
I want you to get one.
I'll get
It's a
one.
little small.
Great.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our food's very important, so.
No, I know. That's why.
Miss
Which
Margaret.
one do you
Thank
want?
you. I'm going with that
I just
one.
want to get the food.
That's
I'm
good.
going, yeah, I'm going for this one. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Put them in last one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The water, appreciate it. Thanks for the pizza.
Bring another pineapple guy?
That's one way to screw up a good pizza. Oh.
Everybody in my family.
Mushroom and peppers. Yeah, mushroom and peppers.
As is that.
So she got 2 mushrooms and a pepper. Well, I think 3 mushrooms. That one has meat on it at least.
I bought them at,
No?
This one, Mark?
yeah.
I'll hold it.
Thank you.
That was a spread sandwich the other day. She's trying to keep us in line.
Bill? You shy today?
I'm a little shy today.
Okay.
I don't know for a man that doesn't eat dressing on his salad.
Because he doesn't particularly care for salad. You'd rather have a hamburger, right? Phil?
You're supposed to disguise the salad with the dressing.
That's exactly what I
I
told
like a
him.
little salad with my dressing.
Mhm.
It's a good delivery system.
No.
Oh, good.
I know I'm making a mess
You
over
just
here.
get to make a mess,
Barbaric.
okay?
There's extra napkins at
That's
least.
why I moved everything over there. I knew what I would do.
All right, you guys good to move?
Great.
You're up, John.
Thanks for having me here. John Newhall. I was approached by a property owner and then with Nate Reed, I'm kind of coordinating with him. There's a 30-acre parcel, 6,200 west, 900 south that we worked with county planners, Charlie and Bill, and just putting together a rezone application. And I wanted to bring this here and circulate it, get your input, comments, thoughts. We have the will serve for Little Mountain, and then we talked to the parks folks, and they're here tonight with kind of what their approach is for the inland, for the open space and the parks requirement. And then we do have the water, culinary water will serve as well. So just kind of wanted to see what your input is. Like I said, working with Phil and Charlie with connectivity and trailways and the pathways. So, here to answer any questions or anything with your input and see what you do.
How far away is the closest Little Mountain sewer line to this project?
Pretty far. But we in discussions with the county, initially Chad, and then he was saying, start with he suggested actually, talk to Little Mountain, start the process with Inland Port and some of the other discussions I've had. As you meeting earlier, or last week that I got to step out a little bit early, but the feedback I heard was going to be pushing that way, and so it's the direction we've done right now.
Just a suggestion. I think there's gonna be a lift station. It's gonna be a heck of a lot closer taking the sewer the other direction, so.
Black Pine,
Mhm.
we got going correct. So,
But
yeah, and I know that Nate Reeves had discussions with them, and this was the suggestion that we took initially. But yeah, absolutely, I mean, that makes a lot more sense.
And what
If it
was
has-
this Black Pine on
59. This is literally like
right next to it?
1,000 feet away. But it meets the intent of it meets the requirements within the ordinance with what's been provided for a rezone,
Right.
as much as I disagree with it. But any other questions, or? I know Charlie, they've met all your and Bill comments as far as connectivity and everything like that.
Yeah, we had some concerns about the block length. This is something that they've worked through with UDOT and have come to a pretty good preliminary kind of place with. Once they get a rezone, obviously they'll work through more of those details, but I feel like the spacing on these is right where we want it to be.
Why did they work with UDOT? That's county.
That's what, I'm sorry, I meant county.
Okay.
They'll
I just
continue
was,
to work with the county.
I'm thinking we're talking Windmill for a second.
That's what I was thinking, yeah, so.
I figured that's where you were going, Bill.
Gary's not in love with 2 of them. in this location, but to meet our connectivity standard, they either need to do that. So if they can punch one of the upper ones into whatever that neighboring street is, then, with the other landowner next door, then
We
little
figured it
easier
was
than-
about,
there you go.
about 600 from here to here, and then a little more from here over to 5150. Or, yeah, 5150.
Is it 660? Is that what we have in our?
660 for street connectivity. However, when we're looking at these collector streets, the ordinance does give the county engineer some discretion on saying we need more broad intervals, especially when we're looking at 55-mile-an-hour road. And so he may want one of those to go away. They'll have a landlocked or a dead end system if one of them goes away. So it's probably better for them to propose it right now. And then if they can find a different way out, I think we'd probably be okay with one of the ones on 12th Street going away.
Yeah. The real concern right now, obviously, is that this would all be a massive dead end situation if we didn't have two.
Yeah. Well, they'd be limited to their, 30 lots?
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna front 12th Street though either, right? All those frontages.
This would all be back of lot and no access allowed kind of a situation. So the other thought was that they don't have any punching out here to the west because this is where the
Corridor
is slated to go. So
Is there currently a house at that
There's a house.
northeast one?
there's a house here.
And the other stuff's just.
It's an old dairy.
Yeah, I think these are just sheds out here, right?
Stuff that's.
Isn't that a house further back the lane there?
On the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Howard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Howard.
One thing, where's your secondary water coming from?
It's coming from night irrigation in the pond, just to the east.
Doesn't Black Pine own that now?
They own the property. They don't
Yeah, the
own the water.
So it'd be
Well, soon to be the parks.
right, the 30 acres.
Something that you may not be aware of. For that secondary water, it's got to be pressurized,
Correct.
according to our ordinance. So however you guys want to get that pressurized, it's nice to have that water storage system right there.
Mhm.
So you just put a pump in that as opposed to relying on somebody to build one.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the conditions with the water district was pressurized secondary, so.
Good.
And you own that water?
Randy's got it
And you
covered.
own that water, or this development will own that water?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
So this will be put on your next agenda for a hearing. If you're okay with that?
You got somebody behind you.
What?
Put it on 900 there.
So
Get a match form, in fact, I talked to Dallin from Black Pine and I mentioned this to them, that if you can match that.
yes.
requirement.
Yeah, so the requirement along the collector streets and the arterial streets is a 10-foot wide, grade separated pathway. Black Pine's gonna be doing that. They're a little bit concerned about how much space we were asking for because they got all that water right there. And I said, well,
Tough curve.
it's a good thing you got engineers.
They
So,
own both sides of the road.
so it may be more beneficial for them to push the road a little bit to the south so they can actually get grade separation there rather than putting in a lot of engineering to hold back the trail. Or a cool little boardwalk bridge, something like that might be actually a cool little addition to it. But yeah, so the intention is from Marriott Slaterville all the way out to Little Mountain, there should be a 10-foot wide pathway adjacent to that road. And we've got UDOT committed to installing their portion of it when they're ready to make those upgrades. So
Already through this project?
through the phase one, they better.
Through this project, because that reconstruct's getting designed right now.
Well, they haven't called us to come to the table, but every project that they do is supposed to have pedestrian and active transportation considerations. So consideration may not necessarily be accommodation. And so maybe they can say, well, we considered it, and the answer is no, but we'll push.
They're sure doing it on SR 30. They're doing more pedestrian than they are road.
Well, they've got new funding for Highway 89 through Davis County. And so they're getting pretty serious about putting, so just so everyone knows, slight tangent, but still related to trails. The state of Utah is creating through UDOT, the Utah Trails Network. is what it's called. And they're trying to identify a backbone network of trails for active transportation statewide. Something that will get people to their destinations if they're using active transportation without having to get on crazy roads, right? Now, in some cases, it'll be road adjacent, in other cases, it'll go through. But the DNRG rail trail is a really good example of a regional connecting trail. When Bill and I sat down with them, we drew trails everywhere and said, these are all UDOT trails. Bill, well, make sure they get built. You guys maintain them. They didn't necessarily, they said, if we're talking about a regional network, we're not talking about local trails. And I said, yeah, I know. Just put it on the map. But things like bridging the railroad on 4300 and on some of those other smaller roads is going to be important to have on those networks, because that's where UDOT's going to focus their funding. Even if they're local streets, UDOT will focus their funding on those kind of connections. So that's our goal. Now, they're obviously looking at much less infrastructure than Bill and I drew on the map, but we figured we should at least put our ask out there. And
They can always say no.
Shoot for the moon, right? It's a negotiation. You shoot for the moon and you work your way back.
That's right. That's exactly right. But what this means is they've got a new source of funding. I think there was 50 million reserved this year by the governor through their budget. And then there's supposed to be something that's ongoing and funded on an annual basis.
It's needed, it's good. I mean, every weekend they unload just up the road from your house, hundreds of bikes, right? And then they're the whole weekend, their whole day, they're riding all that area. So you might as well have some infrastructure for them.
They created a whole division within UDOT for it.
Yep. And I figure this is probably a little bit like state highways and maybe even US highways were back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, where kind of started small, but then all of a sudden every other bigger road became a state highway. I think they probably should start small, get a good backbone network, and then find that kind of spider webbing that's way out in the community. And by the time we get there, we'll have all these really cool trails that they can just take over. Hopefully, cross your fingers.
Okay. So for those of you who didn't hear Charlie mentioned earlier, just give us the breakdown on the changes with Windmill and the names over there, if you don't mind.
So pulling Windmill off the agenda today for the discussion, they're going to bring in 3 or 4 different scenarios for you guys to look at. The one that they have right now doesn't have the kind of street connectivity that we're looking for. One of the reasons why is because they were looking at, let me back up. Windmill number 2 is Cody Wilder's project. You guys already saw that one, just north of
Heritage's.
Cherokee. Yep. Heritage's property. Yep. And so you guys already saw that. You guys already approved their concept plan and the rezone from a planning commission recommendation perspective. They were all queued up and ready for county commission approval. And the property developer changed. So Cody Wilder is still kind of involved in terms of how he's going to benefit from it, but I don't think he's calling the shots anymore. So the property owner who is doing Alley Farms across the street, Alley Farms has been changed to Windmill 1. And then these guys will be Windmill 2. They're picking it up. When they were looking at connections to the south, they didn't realize that we had a street connectivity and a street regulating plan already in that area. And so I don't even think they realized that you guys had already offered conceptual approval. We asked them to redesign, but one of the cool things that they want to do is keep the outside edges larger lots, and then the inside will be for 6,000 square foot lots. So you'll barely be able to see them from the outside. The ones on the outside will stay pretty big. That's one of their proposals. Now that we're asking them to move the roads around, it might change a little bit. So
why do we allow them to keep changing these names so that we lose track of what they are?
Because where is the subdivision, address wise?
So it's on 4700 West and just
500 south.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about a half mile north of.
Okay.
Do you know where the junior high school is proposed? Yeah, just to the west of the junior high school.
The new junior high. The school district owns. No, not the one that's being built.
Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say proposed. You know where the junior high property is? Because they may or may not build a junior high there. We'll see.
Truckloads of buildings.
Yes, that property.
They have been bringing in Phil.
Yeah.
Lots.
A lot
Yeah.
for the last 6-8 months or more.
We should probably make a phone call and make sure as they design that site, they do so with our streets and stuff in mind. But we don't get the same situation we do at the high school.
Okay. Next up, Parks.
So, Mr. Joe Giordano, Chair of the West Warren Park District, asked that we have a work session with them, talk about rezone costs to developers, things that we should be expecting developers to donate to the park district in that time. And then I'm gonna piggyback at the end of Joe's discussion with you guys and talk about a little bit more of the regional perspective of what we could be doing for parks.
Oh, I got you.
Thanks, Joe.
And so you guys know we've got the Taylor West Weaver Park District here too. We figured after talking to Joe a little bit, it might be good to get everyone on the same page and have good knowledge and knowledge sharing.
Thank you, sir.
One request before Joe starts, one request that Commissioner Frohr has given us is that whatever we do between the park districts, we need to try and be consistent, so we don't get developers complaining about one or the other.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to see a lot of you guys.
Welcome back.
That's a good thing, I believe, because I really think, especially with all the activity going on out west, that we should get to know each other really well so that we can make sure everything we do is actually in lockstep together and not out of step with each other. This is Jeff. Most of you probably know him, but he's also a committee member. Everyone else couldn't make tonight work. Everyone coming out of state.
What's Jeff's last name?
Jeff Davis.
Davis.
I think he's actually been a part of this.
He was, yeah,
Yeah, I served with Wayne way back when,
yeah, when we were kids.
He sat where you guys have sat.
when I was a kid.
Joe, can I ask, before you dive in, what is the park district's relationship to the county? Like, how is it managed, operated, run? How do you get appointed, all that kind of stuff?
Okay, so we are.
A special
special service district, right? So like, we are not really affiliated with the county in any way, shape or form, minus the fact that they put a resolution in place in 1993 to create our district. And then due to it was like Title 10, it's changed to like Title 17 or whatever governs us. There's the ability for the municipality to appoint our board of trustees to appoint our board members.
So that's the county commission appoints the board.
Correct. And if we have talked about it, there may be a time when we switch to an election based, like, we're not quite big enough at this point in time. But, so, and then so to just give you a background of where we're at today, like I said, the district stood up back in the 90s. There was a piece of ground donated to the community years ago, over 100 years ago, and you can read a cool story about it on our website. But anyway, they kind of stipulated that it be a church, a school, or a park. They wanted it to be used for the community. And so in the 70s, they basically got landowners to allow people to come out there, hunt pheasants, charge money, kept the park alive that way. That kind of fizzled out as pheasants moved out of, Western Weaver County. And so they needed a way to kind of get the park going for the community. They became a district, started collecting tax revenue. We have a pretty nice park out there today if you've never been out there. And we're hoping to build more. This letter will kind of outline that situation. But so the district really focused, community is small. We have about 210 residents, households. So what is that, 3 times 210, 700 people according to the Utah census, right? So still very small district, and where we sit, we're kind of at an inflection point. So the committee used to really just kind of focus on keeping the park nice, making sure that all the amenities were modernized and that the community had a place to do their activities. But as you know, things aren't so quiet out there in Western Weaver County anymore. It's about to get a lot busier. We have 9,000 acre industrial park that's going to get approved, I believe, in May. I think they're meeting again in May.
Yeah, they pushed it to May.
Yeah, I guess they pushed it. So interesting. And then, we have We took a field trip last week, or at least some of us took a field trip last week. You know that housing development's being proposed in our district. And so probably within the next 30, 40 years, we're growing a lot. So like I said, we're kind of an inflection point. And so our committee, we really are focused on setting a foundation for Parks District and Recreational Department for a future city. I mean, that's kind of the way our mindset is, right? That one day we hope that there's enough growth out there that the residents decide to, incorporate. I'm sure it's gonna happen because of the growth, which happens first kind of thing. And, we wanna make sure we're not handing the city a mess, right? We wanna hand them something viable that can get off the ground immediately to be a park district and a recreation park. So that said, I don't know if you want me to go over the letter, read the letter. If everybody wants to read the letter, you tell me what's best. Have a few talking points on top of this letter that I'd like to talk about.
Give us the highlights.
So, the highlights are just basically that. So, currently, we have about 800 residents with only 6 acres of park. And in fact, we're the only 6 acres of park in Western Weaver County, right? As of today. I know they're working on it, but they're not there yet. And so everybody's kind of surprised when I say that, right? When I've met with the commission in the past, when I've met with developers in the past. There are some public ground out there that the DWR maintains. It's closed certain times of years or whatever, but we are literally the only public space that the residents can go to in unincorporated Western Weaver County, legally. So there's that. And basically, like I said, we've got about 800 residents, 6 acres. So if you do the math on that, that translates to 7.5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents is where we're sitting. The national recommendations from the Parks Administration are 10 to 15 acres per 1,000 residents. So we're already at a deficit, right? Because so we're looking to grow. We have we got John and another developer coming to us already. And we're looking at approximately an increase of another 500 residents, just those 2 developers alone. And those are probably short-term projects, right? This ain't flagship homes, this ain't a 50-year project. This is probably, if they can get greenlit through you guys, they'll probably be selling houses in less than 5 years, right? And so our deficit would just go up at that point in time. So, our goal is to preserve open space. We try to align with the county's master plan. We want to expand our park systems. We want to meet our community's diverse needs. And so by doing that, we had some discussions with the county and the planners when the county's master plan was revised. And one of the questions that we were asked is, would the park district be willing to take on open space or contributions for open space? Because there's obviously a governance issue with the way the cluster subdivisions work. I'll talk to that in a minute. And so we said, we like that idea. I think the residents supported that idea in the planning sessions I was in. And so we thought, okay, we'll see how it works. Well, we come out the gate with a kind of a doozy, 350 acre development, Black Pine. They wanted to hand us 34 acres of a slough. And so we worked with them and, it was a good process. Everything ended up, I think, in a good place. Matter of fact, I touched base with them today. We're excited. We're a little disappointed that they told us they weren't part of the inland port, and they are, but they swear to me that that was not a fact when we first negotiated with them. So I guess I believe them.
That they weren't part of it, or they are part of it? Oh.
That they weren't when we initially negotiated with them.
Got it.
That's what they say. That's okay. But either way, we got a good deal with them. We got a good future for that 34 acres plan. Matter of fact, talked to Dallin Day, and he talked about that the inland port has a requirement to spend 1% of their differential on wetlands, right? So we're hoping to dip into a little of that specifically for that. So, there's good things happening. Next developer we met with came in, large rezone, 80 acres, wanted to go to the RE15 zone, I believe it's called, 3rd acre lots, whatever. And we came to say, okay, what can you do for us, or what can we do for you? It's right next to our current park, so we thought, well, let's see what we want monetarily to kind of help offset this development in our community. So we ran some numbers, we did some math, and we came up with $7,500 a lot. The developer said, okay, that's a lot, and he walked out of the meeting, you know, like, I mean, it was an argument, it was an issue, and we haven't heard really from him since. We have heard rumblings that he has been in here and complained that we've asked for too much money, so we thought we would come in here and justify why we got to that number and why we think that number is probably fair for both sides. I think anything less is too little, and I could even support more, so I know we wanted to kind of show you that. So.
Want me to just to talk a little bit about the process we got to on that? So in looking at what that cost would be, we approached it from two directions. One, we looked at what was the requirement in the previous cluster subdivision, and how would that be appropriate, and we just backed off what that acreage would be and what that cost would be kind of per home, and got to about that 7,500. So it's about in line with what we saw as open space for the cluster subdivision, which you know, for all the reasons it wasn't working and why we're where we're at. The other thing we've started to do is we actually went through a community engagement process through online surveys and some open houses, and attended a community event where there were lots of people, and we got lots of feedback about what would you want to see as part of your future parks. We also looked at what are the needs of the future community, and through that we've identified some types of parks that they would want. We've also identified that as Plain City and West Haven are growing, you know, West Haven's already running out of space for their recreation. Some of our kids are going clear to Roy to play on Roy fields in the West Haven, and there will be a need for those types of things. So then we talked with a construction cost estimator and a landscape architect, and got some costs of what those types of parks would cost us. And then we backed that out as well. And we came to a similar number around that 7,500. So through these two different methods, we came to that $7,500 number.
Right, so to kind of speak to the cluster subdivision, and the $7,500 number, funny enough, kind of matches up to what the county required by ordinance once upon a time. So we know there's legalities on actually having a developer contribute a certain amount of money to us, and so we're negotiating with them without the county involved, so that it's not some sort of rezoning requirement, that kind of thing. It's not an impact fee. But let me give you an example. Vaquero Village, phase 1 was 13 acres. The county required 4 acres of open space, right? So that's 30% of that 13 acres the county required to be open space. So just pass you around a picture, the concept of that open space and the reality of that open space. They have their open space preservation plan here that they worked out with the county back in the day. And it talks about specifically trails will be built, no structures will be built in the open space areas. You see there's structures, there's fences, there's obviously no trails. So, and this just goes to support this new approach where we're saying, hey, instead of promising that you're going to do that and then having it fall through either by the developer or the HOA, let's turn it over to a governance that can actually focus these funds, right? But I just wanted to show you kind of mathematically where this is at. So 4% or 30% of 13 was the 4 acres that they required for Vaquero Village. 30% of 80 is 24 acres. So they're doing 80 acres over there for phase 2, they're rezoning. 24 acres, so you know, that's, if they did 3 acres per lot, that's 240 lots, right? You know, 240 times 7,500 is $1.8 million. 24 acres at $75 an acre, which is probably more than that by the time this gets rolling, is $1.8 million. So if we asked them to contribute the same amount of land that you would have required in open space during the cluster subdivision ordinance, they should be contributing $1.8 million worth of acreage, plus improvements. Right? So that's why we feel the number is right where it should be. Anything less than that, it doesn't match up with even what we asked historically from developers. So, and I know in this meeting, you know, you're not the governance, you're not, but I think what we're asking for the planning commission and the planners is kind of just to support us. If the developers come in and they talk about we're unreasonable or anything like that, I don't think we're unreasonable. I think we have the numbers, the history to kind of show we're where we need to be. If we turn around and buy the appropriate amount of open space to offset this development, it's gonna cost us at least $1.8 million plus another 1.5 to develop it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
When you're running your numbers, so does that include, I mean, when we talk about parks, it's actually parks and recreation. So you're talking like rec buildings, like indoor rec facilities as well?
We want to be there because of the fact that the unincorporated kids
Yeah, they don't have anywhere.
don't have anywhere. They're currently charged an extra fee to play in the other district, the other cities. And those cities, I'm not trying to cause a panic, but they have hinted at the possibility of eliminating, allowing the
Yeah,
unincorporated
they're
kids.
they're full, they can only handle so much and they don't have the money to do it either.
And just to be clear, as a park district, when we talk about the recreation element, we're really talking about, you know, open space for soccer fields, maybe football, but then baseball fields as well, more as from the park point of view.
Yeah.
And that's where we run our numbers on. We haven't run our numbers off of doing buildings. It would be much more if we were looking at buildings.
Like basketball court.
Okay,
But,
that's good. to know.
but like Joe was saying earlier on, we do foresee that this could develop into, if there was an incorporation and it turns into a park and rec district, those types of amenities could definitely be a part of the future of what we're starting here. We're just not,
So even with
thinking
the
that-
7,500, that's not gonna support buildings, this is just for the
It-
outdoor. rec.
it'll support some pavilions
And there,
and some toilet rooms.
and there are options, like we're not trying to put it all on the development, right? We're really just trying to get their share, right? The master plan states a commensurate community investment. And so that's a tough thing to put a number on. What's a commensurate community investment, right? So we were the ones tasked with doing that by the people who wrote that master plan, right? They come to us, we come up with what's a commensurate community investment. And that's for these, and in order to streamline it for the foreseeable future, next few years, anything that comes in that's 30 acres, gonna be 90 houses, $75, right? If someone comes to us and says, hey, I wanna do this 120 acres, you guys interested in this 30 off to the side? Different story, right? But if they're coming in, I mean, no, not, John's plan's great, there wasn't a space down there for a public space, right? So that's kind of what we're saying, we just want those kind of developments, that, what you just saw, we just wanna tell them, hey, $7,500, we'll give you a letter, we're happy, we'll take your money like his, we plan on working with Black Pine, we're gonna invest it in the park that's right next door, right, like bam, bam, done, right? That's why I had that conversation with Alan today to see kind of how things are rolling. They're rolling, you know, I mean, it's gonna take a while to develop a park around the slough, but we'll get it done.
But it's one of the first things we're having them do, right, is dedicate you the land and, yeah, and then they have to start developing from there.
And sorry, one more question about the numbers. What was the density of park space that you used in your calculation? Was it the 10 or 15 acres per 1,000 residents?
For parks that were in deficit of,
So we're looking at what the national average is.
So, well, just when you're running your numbers, how much money you needed per resident? I mean, were you running it at the 10 acres per 1,000 residents or more like 15 acres per 1,000 residents?
we didn't run the numbers that way, we basically ran them based off of what it would take to build a sports park, which we figured needs to be about 25 acres.
Oh, so one sports park.
One sports park with 4 fields, it was one piece of it, and then we, you know, also, there are also other pieces like a historical farm. It was one of the things that came up through the community engagement, and so there are these different pieces, but for the sports park, we ran the numbers for the 7,500 based on getting the 25 acres and developing it into a sports park, knowing that that's a future need.
And we're really interested in the sports park for the reasons we laid out.
But
No,
when we are looking at how much actual space we need to support our residents, we are looking at that,
the
The
standard.
10 to 15
The 10,
national
yes.
average. So right now, you're running numbers on, for a 25-acre park, that would support, I guess, somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 residents.
Correct. So there would be, if we built today a 25-acre sports park, we would actually be a surplus of park space.
Right.
Instead of a deficit.
It would be more than
Which
what
would
we
be
need.
great.
You'd have to do it piecemeal. of
Well,
course.
that's what I was about to say. The problem with anything like anything smaller, like I think your park underway is 9 acres.
Yeah, 9.5.
It won't be a sports park.
We're gonna get them
Well,
20
start
something.
with the land and then do the
30
development.
something.
Start with
Well,
the
but
land, and then we
what
can
I'm getting at is we can continue to kind of just match. Okay, these few hundred houses give us this 5-acre park or whatever, or we can just kind of leapfrog that one. I think we need to do and say, and this is a small sports park, 25 acres, right? It's probably 2 baseball fields and 1 football field with an adequate parking for the events. You probably need closer to 50 acres if you're gonna have 4 fields, right? So look at like low bar park in Plainfield, right? They have two baseball fields.
How big's West Haven's Park, their big park on 32?
I don't know.
It's gotta be close to 50 acres, isn't it?
Yeah, close to. And so, again, we might not have the residents to support that size of park, but we should probably look at putting one out there, or at least trying to get one started, because you
At least
can't take,
identifying the land.
you can't take 9 acres, it'd be a nice park for Taylor. They won't be able to really have a rec program, right? Like, we have a baseball field at our park, and kids do practice there, but we can't host games because the fence isn't recreation size, and if they're hitting balls out on the 12th Street, it's probably not a good thing. And so, and then, the field isn't long enough to support, standard football game, that kind of stuff. So,
So is it like, around a $10 million park? Is that what your
Yes.
numbers say? Okay, that makes
Yes.
sense.
10 million for 25? Is that what you said,
Or
25 acres?
3,500 residents. When I just ran the numbers, 3,500 residents, 3 residents per household.
Yeah, it came in about 10 million for.
It's like 9 million.
For what would be either like 2 baseball fields and then develop for like football and soccer, or 4 baseball fields.
keeping in mind that that's about 120 parking lot, 120 car parking lot requirement on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And then the restrooms and all the other facilities that go along with it. So, I mean, and
All in the numbers.
that's kind of why, and again, I guess we just wanted to have this meeting to get your advice on how to
3,300.
streamline this and maybe get your support.
Like
When,
2,900
I think
west.
you'll hear from developers about our process
Almost
or
got it.
whatever, and this is where we want to be.
It's a race.
So,
I like that right here.
And instead of negotiating with every developer that
Me
comes
too.
in,
There's a
we're
bunch of
happy to
different parcels.
negotiate if they want to offer land or development of a park, right? But when it comes to just the price, we just wanted to set that as a standard for, so that it's just what's expected and that it has the backing of these are the reasons why.
and streamline it for their benefit, right? We've been quoted takes too long, which in our defense, we're all volunteers, we meet once a month, so they come visit us. Next meeting, we talk about it, and then next meeting, we tell them our results, so it is a 90-day process.
Sorry. Yeah, that's hard.
So if they know what it is coming in,
We try to be as fast as possible, but this will help just kind of, these boilerplate examples like you just visited, we can just hand them the contract.
How often do you plan on changing the cost to make up for market fluctuations?
I think we'll be where we're at for a few years, and honestly, if it's one of those things, that's my least favorite state.
46
right?
acres.
The growth funds itself kind of thing. But what I foresee, I think me and you talked about it on the train.
Mhm.
I actually see this requirement going completely away in the
Eventually.
future.
Mhm.
I feel like we'll get to a level of service where impact fees will be appropriate. We are currently working with Zions to work on impact fees, keeping in mind they're based off the current level of service, not a projected level of service. So,
Yeah.
but if we can get our level of service up at the high end of this standard, that'll help our impact fees.
Going for 15? acres per thousand, is that what you, the high standard?
Yeah,
Okay.
If we get to the high end, I
Great.
mean, that should be the community's goal. If we
Yeah.
don't get there, so be it. But I think the community's goal should be the high end of the standard.
Yeah.
And then, also, our revenue is probably gonna increase a lot because we got the inland, the inland port's huge, right? Residents brings about $50 a household at our tax rate. So it's great, but what pays the bills are our, commercial partners, commercial folks out there. And so with the inland port coming in, I looked at their draft. I think they said in their 9,000 acres, we currently are getting 3,000. Right?
But there is the reduction.
Right, so they'll put their tax differential in place if this gets approved. But that incentivizes businesses. The inland port does what the inland port does, we hope. And go out there and solicit businesses to come to Western Weaver County, and hopefully they're all good, happy businesses. And anyway, they come to Western Weaver County, they're valued at a high value, even 25% of what that land is today, is more than the money we're getting. And then when that differential expires, hopefully in 25 years, but possibly 40, our income will decrease. So this kind of funding is, in essence, I think, a stopgap to kind of till our district matures to a point, or the community matures to a point where we don't need to impose this onto developers. It's almost like those who come first have to build it, right? And so these folks are the ones coming out there first. Like, these are the first, these type of developments are the first of their kind in our community. Right? We've had a few cluster subdivisions, and as you can see, they are clusters. So, and now we're waiting for something better, and I think something better will come,
Well, I think the logic for me is that the first to come pay the least for the land. And so this chunk they're paying,
Correct.
in the long run, someone who's buying in 20, 40 years is gonna be paying a heck of a lot more than $7,500 a unit for
I 100%
their
agree with
property.
you.
So I don't wanna look at it as like they're paying more. I just think it's the true impact when you balance out.
I 100% agree with that.
The impact.
So these numbers that you figured are based on 3 front doors per acre.
They are, because I just was trying to do easy math.
No, that's okay.
Well, that's what,
Oh, sorry.
Well, and that's what the general plan says.
General plan is all
Medium to large lots are.
So here's my thought. The pushback that you're gonna get from the developers, first off, it's too much. You know that. You've already probably experienced it, or you're going to be experiencing it. Sounds like you already
Well,
have
from what I
at least
understand,
once.
they just end runs it around.
Here's where the concern is what it may force is higher density. So if you get higher density, you got more front doors per acre. What does that do to your numbers? And I'm just throwing this kind of out there just to be thinking about. I don't expect answers for it right now, but it may create a situation where for it to be affordable to develop, it forces some higher density. So.
But we control the density. I mean, they're not.
It's not a control thing. It's not about
They can ask
control.
for-
That's not what I'm thinking about. It's not.
You're right. They can ask for townhomes or smaller lots
Right.
or.
Kind of like Navy Meadows, they proposed
Right.
initially, I mean, it was almost 10 acres of open space, but not much of it was very usable.
But that's sort of why I brought in
Right.
the cluster development example, right? Because I'm trying to show by ordinance, it costs them so much.
Sure.
And now, by design, we want higher density on smaller ground. And we want the investment to take and buy meaningful open ground that the community can have that's actually not weeds, right? And so we want to build a park, we want to build a trail system. I mean, I know that's why I asked the question. Yeah, because we want 900 to come down, we want 7,500 to go across. These are the things we want to invest that money into instead of this. And so the cost.
You mean a 3-foot gravel trail isn't gonna get you nowhere?
Well, the cost, but what I'm trying to say is, those costs were there once upon a time.
I know,
for these developers.
3
Like,
foot.
we're asking them for really what they should have paid what they would have paid 5-7 years ago, right? Like, If they came to you and said, we're gonna develop that 80 acres in 2015, you would have required 25 acres of open space, give or take, right? And it's like, okay, so that's the value of that ground. And we're not really changing the game plan up on them. And yes, but if they increase the density, maybe we could lower the number.
Well, and that's
But
just
in the
something
end,
we
it'll
just-
still be a higher number for us.
Right.
Because we're not gonna lower it to a point where it's the same.
Yeah,
I think your
Well,
per
but
front
two-
door, number stays the same, because if the density goes up, you just need more space,
The
right?
use
That's
goes
a
up.
true
You got
statement.
more,
Yeah.
you got
I
more
mean, I can
users.
see though, maybe if there was enough density in there, we could say like 6. Right. Because the overall number would be higher.
Yeah.
But still,
is all I'm trying to make an example of is,
what they were.
the more front doors, or the cost being what it is, the more front doors drives up the density.
Yep.
The density drives up the amount of money, but then that also increases the amount of space. So it's the dog chasing the tail or the tail chasing the dog.
Yep, chicken and egg.
And that's,
Yeah.
But even back at under the old cluster code, I mean, this is more of a benefit, I say, because they're getting, the old cluster code, they would have had to give up that 25 acres. They would have still only got on 80 acres, 120 doors, right?
Right.
Because it's acre density, they got a 50% bonus. Here you've doubled that, you're getting 240 doors.
Yep.
That number, so really that number's almost cut in half.
to them, in a way, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Their outcome's the same.
Well, their outcome's
Their
double.
outcome is actually double.
What they could get compared to what they used to have to give up, it's still a benefit.
They'll argue they could
Help me
sell a
understand
bigger lot for
that
more
math.
money than.
So the old cluster code,
Uh-huh.
acre density,
Uh-huh.
they met all the requirements, they got 50% bonus,
Uh-huh.
right? So that took it to 120 doors.
Okay.
Now under third acre, they can put 240 doors
Okay.
on 80 acres.
Right.
But we're still talking, if they did size it down, we're still talking that third of that ground basically had to remain open.
It was half, 50%, right? Had to
Yeah.
remain open.
Yeah, so even more ground than that, so 40 acres and,
I
I
like-
think the numbers are, they're very low
Probably.
compared to what they could be, and then you put a dollar amount to that ground and.
Right,
So-
we're trying, right, and I guess I picked 75,000 an acre, which that's arguably low, depending on where you're building in West Warren. I'm just trying to make the numbers easy. I'm trying to illustrate
Yeah.
what you're getting.
No,
at.
I think your numbers
It's not
are
a, it's
very
not
fair.
an unreasonable ask. That's what I'm trying to illustrate, right?
I like the way you ran the math twice, 2 different ways. I think you've got me on board because you looked at the cost to the community in terms of 15 acres per 1,000 and said, what does that actually cost to build it and produce? The reverse math that you did, I'm a little nervous about that, and not to say that you should change, because I think the forward math that you did is the best math. The reverse math I'm a little bit concerned about, because that open space parcel is not 75,000 an acre. That open space parcel is undevelopable, and so it's almost zero, right? It's developable, I mean, whatever the farm,
We're
purely
translating
ag
it to
prices.
developable ground for them.
Right.
I mean, when they purchased the property, right, they paid that for it. But I see your point too, because it's the same thing like we've had discussions about trying to rezone
Right.
ground that has no density.
Right.
Yep. And when they're trying to put a dollar amount that's buildable ground for really that ground is worthless.
But that ground, that open space ground is at least worth $7,500 an acre.
Cause
7,500 or 75,000?
Well, you.
Because I'll go 7,500.
If I ask
That makes sense.
75.
If I ask this developer, when we meet with them again, I will propose, I think the board will propose, give us 25 acres. I bet he'll choose the $7,500 option.
Per lot.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just throwing that out there, by the way.
But the thing is he would still get the same amount of density. He could still put the 240 units on it, even if he's giving them the 25 acres. That's just gonna make the lots that much smaller, or townhomes or something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Similar to like you said with Navy.
Yeah.
I mean, Navy didn't get a big boost Navy's 74 acres, they proposed 240 lots,
Somewhere around there.
238 lots, I think, on Navy, and they're giving almost 10 acres of that to
I think they
parks.
originally proposed 230. I think it went up to 2.
No, their original was 210.
Okay.
to 11, because that's what they could get out of that at 3rd acre
That makes
lots.
sense. Okay. Yeah.
And then with because really when we did that rezone on the townhomes, we were literally talking 30 additional doors.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, they're developing almost 10 acres there, fully developed, right?
5 acres fully developing, and then the other is passive open space. They'll put some trails through it, but it'll remain mostly natural.
So really is what we're asking is to have your support on this, and that as you've asked the developers to come to us and get an agreement with us.
Yeah.
And so we're just asking that as this is the standard for our agreement, that you make sure that they have a signed agreement with us before you approve those things.
And you guys will do a signed, executed development agreement, right?
Yes.
And do you want that prior to recommendation, or even definitely prior to rezone by the county commission, but do you want it prior to the planning commission seeing it?
What I think we would like to see the process be, and I guess this is where, Brandon can maybe help out, but they come to you with a letter and or a contract if they're willing to sign it. When they ask for the rezone, if they have the contract, we're done. If they have the letter, we've given them the contract.
Okay.
And then before the rezone's approved by the commission, we would ask that the contract be signed.
Let me throw just an idea out there, because I mean, here's my view of it. As long as it's meeting what's in our code, you guys are your own governing body.
Right.
And really, we shouldn't be meddling in that business as long as they're getting out of that what's in that code. We should hope, not only as community members, but also as the planning commission, that board knows what they need, knows what their future is, knows what the cost is for that. And that's what they're asking for. And we should support whatever they bring to the table. They're their own governing document. Now, how that's executed, my suggestion is like you say, whether it's a letter we have to have a letter to move forward from the planning commission standpoint on a rezone that says it will be negotiated and finalized before county commission.
You don't have to, but we want, right?
No, I want it done before the county commission. So, because what I want to see done is these guys are their own entity. We as the county shouldn't be writing a development agreement for them. They write their own development agreement.
Right.
They put it in the county's development agreement. When the county writes it, we just reference
their agreement
as appendix A or whatever their agreement is, and it's fully executed. That has to be in there to get the county's development agreement.
The only question I have on that, and that's the problem with this process. I don't know other counties that are doing this. The local building authority of Legal County. So they come to you for the reason. It is illegal for you to require them to donate to the parks, for them to get their rezone, correct?
It's a donation. We have the ability
They can take their case down to the lieutenant governor and say, that was an unreasonable request.
And we could say we don't have to give them the rezone. So they're not entitled to it.
It's illegal for us to do that if we are denying their ability to develop under the zone that they have.
Okay.
But where they're asking for a different zone, we could ask for gold paved
Because I was
streets.
worried when we started this process, it seemed great, but then it felt like we took the teeth out of it by allowing these developers to come in and lowball.
If you have a subdivision that comes in and wants acre density, this isn't a discussion, because they're not changing what that ground's zoned for. But now they are asking for more, so it opens that door that we can go in and say, okay, this needs to be done. The general plan shows it, work it out. You guys work it out, bring it to.
So a letter showing that we've talked and that they have a contract before it comes to the planning commission, and then an executed development agreement before it can go to the commission.
I like it.
Because that's when the county's going to approve the county's development agreement. You guys is just going to be attached as a supplemental document essentially within that county.
It's just a requirement for them to get to that point in your process.
Exactly.
And we need to make sure that the fee is paid before building permit.
Before it gets platted.
Before recording.
Yeah, before recording.
Which-
So that we're not just passing this on. But it comes in.
May I just put a plug in for the Taylor West River Park District 2?
You're next.
If that's okay.
You're next.
Like right now, next?
Yeah.
Like right now. It's your meeting.
I'm in charge. I say no. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So similar to we're very similar in our processes. One thing that we have determined on our end is that our park district actually doesn't hold any enforcing authority in these donations, meaning we can't enforce the agreement that we sign with the developers. It's actually the county that has an agreement to make that donation to the park district. We're just a third-party beneficiary, really. So the agreement doesn't really have any legal weight, at least from our opinion, it doesn't. So what we proposed as a process, and maybe you can adopt this as well, is to provide the letter expressing our support for the rezone in exchange for certain donations. And then with that letter, take it to the commission for approval, but do not record the plat until that donation has been delivered.
Well, that's what we just said. We just want it in the development agreement.
Take out the agreement, because the executed agreement really has.
So contract between us and the developer is non-enforceable, is that what you're saying?
I would not be able to enforce it, no. At least I don't think I could take it to court and make.
And that's what I was trying to say.
In a contract, you
He
need
said
consideration,
legally, so I said
Yeah.
it's fine.
and the consideration that you're giving them would be a show of support, but not something you actually have authority to execute. So
Even
you're not
though
actually
it's-
giving them consideration.
Even though we're attaching it within the development agreement that ties it back to the rezone.
So that's where our consideration comes in.
Yeah.
That's, so the county's got full control over that. The
Yeah.
county can make that enforceable, yes.
So if we do it through that way and attaching their agreement to our agreement, it is enforceable through the county to ensure that these guys are getting paid. And then it's a condition.
County's development agreement
Yeah.
requires.
That's why I want it attacked in the county's development agreement, because then the county has the enforcing ability.
The county is the champion.
Yes, yes, yeah, I agree. But I want you guys to write a development agreement that says, this is what you want. This is what you guys want. And then that's why I wanted it attached to the county's agreement, because the county is going to enforce it. And as part of that, just like we said, like to Sarah's point, you're not recording this plat, just like anything else, until your improvements are either in or you've escrowed for it. The Parks District's made satisfied with the commitment that was agreed upon in there for that part. So all of that stuff is documented in that development agreement.
Just to make it.
They have to do it when they want to sign their plat. Well, guess what? It's just like, so I'm gonna wear my Taylor West Weaver hat for a minute. Either we put another box on the plat, which pisses everybody off, but I disagree. And you guys could write that in your development agreement that says you have to sign that plat as the Parks District. That's what, the county won't put it in the code, but the Water District could put it as a stipulation in our stuff to get that. It could be the same thing. And then you know, okay, if they want to record that plat, that's how we know for sure you guys have made whole, because not knocking the county, but sometimes things get missed, and that's what I would recommend get done.
Sure.
It's not you.
You can write out the agreement as maybe an exhibit, like it would.
That's all I want it to.
A laundry list of items, and we can have the developer acknowledge the exhibit that they have talked through it with us and have agreed to.
Well, essentially, the developer signs it, that the parks chair or the parks board's gonna sign it, say this is what we've agreed to. The developer signs it, it becomes an exhibit within the county's development agreement. That's what, I think it's clear, it's easy. Then we know when funds are getting changed, and, I mean, essentially, it's, sometimes I hate that the county passes the buck and puts the burden on water districts, parks districts and stuff, but this is the way that you guys know you're getting made whole, other entities are, and then it moves forward.
So sometimes when we're looking at contracts, I try to avoid, and this isn't casting shade on the conversation at all, just thinking out loud. I try and avoid third-party beneficiaries in contracts, because sometimes it gets a little bit clunky. For the exact reason we're saying, like, well, yeah, the county would have the ability to enforce potentially this other contract. Do we enforce it against the park district's will if they do choose to not enforce? Do we, I mean, what is exactly is that relationship?
But how is that any different than what we've done for years when it comes to Central Weaver Sewer and their requirement, Taylor West Weaver Water and their requirement, or any other special services district? It's not really a third party.
So
it's another governmental agency, essentially.
In our contracts, we don't specify contractual obligations the developer has to do to fulfill those other agencies. We just say, meet their requirements, basically.
But you still hold funds and everything else for those type of utilities and escrow funds and contingency funds for it. So how's it different?
Well, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this, because you are a government agency, and so I do think we've got a little bit better standing there. I've seen a development agreement in the past that says that the developer shall and will install the neighbor's fence. And it wasn't even on his property line, it was somebody else's fence. Some third party got some benefit from the county making a development agreement. And then the third party comes in and says, you never made them install the fence. Like, well, it's not our fence. We don't have any benefit from that fence. It's not the county. This agreement is between the county and the developer, not the county and the neighbor, not the county and the park district. And so it could get a little bit weird, but fortunately,
To that point,
Brandon
though,
works in the other office, and so we can always compare notes across the board, and we can work with your attorney as well.
if it's a requirement in there, wouldn't the county made the developer escrow for those funds? Right? Even if it is a private fence, if it's part of part of what they have to do to build that,
Yes.
there should have been funds, and
But
then the
that's-
county could go.
Yes. That's a requirement of law, not a part of a contract. That's where things get a little bit fuzzy when you're looking at contract law. The agreement is between the two parties. If there's a third party out there, that third party has no ability to enforce this agreement.
But that's where the county needs to step in and uphold what's in that agreement to benefit, whether, third party, I get it when it's a private entity, but when we're talking another agency,
Yeah.
I would expect it from the water district that they uphold what our requirements is and nothing moves. Things got a little gray for a while, but I think we're on a good track when it comes to that
I
now.
think we are too.
And same, no different with these guys as a special services district or these guys as a special services district.
In the event the county laws or the county development agreement conflicts with the agreement that the park district has, what do you think we should do in those cases?
If it conflicts, what do you mean?
If there's a conflict in some way. Maybe the park district has negotiated something that we wouldn't be able to enforce under county law or something like that.
I seriously think we need to find some way legally to get consideration from the Parks District perspective, and they have their own agreement. And it could be written into the one with the accountant, with the main agreement for the county, but they should have a stake in this, an equal stake that they can defend or.
So there's another way that we could do it, and I can talk to Brandon about this, but it could be a three-way agreement where we got the developer, the park district, and the county, where we all have a mutual obligation to each other.
Yep.
And maybe there's a way we can work through that.
We just want to make sure. So far, everybody's done everything in good faith. So far, they've
They
produced.
don't
that.
trust me for too long.
So what I'm saying is,
I'll
we
play the
just want to
plan.
make sure
But if they put
years
that,
down the road, these things are gonna hold up.
They're gonna stick.
So whether we end up going either route, what things are there any policies or ordinances that need to be passed to put that in process? Or is this just a process that we're agreeing to that?
but Charlie, if they put the requirement to sign the plat that says they're made whole, they won't come sign the plat till they're made whole. Doesn't that take care of that issue? From my understanding, because that's what we had to do with the water district.
That sounds pretty simple.
We put that as a condition of approval. You're not gonna get full approval from the Parks District unless there's a box on that plat, because the county ordinance doesn't require a water district or another entity to sign it. But if they're another review agency, if we put that requirement in there, they sign the plat, you guys don't sign it till you guys feel you're made comfortable.
So I could look into that and talk to legal about that. State code does require a sewer entity and a water entity to sign off on at least the provision. State code also says that we cannot require certain districts from having signatures on plats. Like we can't require the fire district, or we can't require the electrical company or anything
Well, you
like
can't
that
require a water district because we gotta write it in our letters. As per county
to
code.
sign the plat.
Yes.
So we're saying, so yeah, and the state code doesn't say that we have to provide a space for the water districts to sign the plat, but it does say that the county cannot or should not approve the plat if the water district hasn't offered their approval first.
Yeah, and we're
And so
not an essential service, which
that's-
is another hitch in the giddy up.
But if they put it as a condition of approval,
So it sounds like there's a little bit of research to be done
Yeah.
to verify which,
How to do it.
in both routes.
Yep.
So maybe there's some research and maybe, and so it would be nice if we could kind of set a next step
Okay.
of, let's get this research done by this date and then let's talk again.
So I think.
I like your idea,
It's a
but I
good
don't know if it's gonna happen.
I know.
We'll make it happen.
That's a good point, and I know Lance is here, we talked. So this ventured from what we initially started to conversation about, we want your support on our number, and we thank you for the times that you've scrutinized developers about, have they talked to us? And this has probably ventured to the conversation I had with you and Rick and Bill, email wise, before the holidays, that we think quarterly. And I think they were on board, we think we should probably meet quarterly.
Yeah.
The planners.
Yeah.
To just bounce these kind of things off. You can maybe show us the magic map of where things are starting to show up out
Yeah.
there, and we can say, dang, that's where we wanna park, or, cause you would come to me and you said, hey, Joe, pick some places for us to park, and it's like, chicken,
Hard to pick, right?
egg before the chicken, chicken before the egg, cause it's like, well, if I go pick a spot over here, and the next 10 subdivisions are way over here, that was pointless.
Yeah.
right? And so it's almost like we need to try to just stay in step,
Yes.
because we are right now actively trying to buy some ground a little north to the, like you mentioned to us. So we're approaching some people, but that's based off of what we know today, right? And so we don't wanna go out there and guess anything else too far out, because
That makes sense.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, the more communication that it comes between the people that know what's going on with the growth and the people that are gonna make these type of things happen.
Who have the potential benefit and or detriment if they're not on board. Yep, I agree with you. And that actually dovetails really well into this next part of the conversation, but I wanted to make sure we capstone this one if you're comfortable with it. I did have a question for you on the 7,500. Are you going to waive the impact fees for those who voluntarily pay the 7,500? Or will you still apply impact fees to it?
I think we can definitely discuss that. I don't think there's a reason to double charge them, because I firmly believe our $7,500 fee will get passed on to the buyer.
You know it will.
So let's all be realistic, but, and so, yes, I would think, I can't speak, and we probably shouldn't speak for the whole committee.
But we,
I would disagree with that. Homes sell at market value, and as long as the developer is paying that before it plats, they can't just charge $7,500 more for a
That's
house.
true,
It's
but-
gonna sell for what it sells for, so
What's
that's
market
where,
value today?
yeah.
So we don't have impact fees right now. We're looking at that, and that could impact this as well.
Maybe
But,
we'll
but
reduce
there,
But I
there
think-
are, what we're talking about is obtaining land for parks and developing those parks.
Yeah.
Is what maybe isn't being considered is what is the then cost to operate and maintain those parks? And so that's another consideration we have. And if the impact fee is a part of that operational fee, then maybe we're not waiving it, but
Right.
we haven't got that far in
That's
that
the thing,
conversation.
impact fees have their
Impact
own
fees
rules and
can't be for
regulations
operation,
applied to
it's
them.
just,
You can't use it.
it's just basically for,
They can
It's been
only go to the
handled, so.
existing service, they have to be spent within 5 years, so I see impact fees coming down the line as something that's like, hey, if we're building this subdivision, down the park district, we have to go add some parking to our current park,
Mhm,
because we're gonna be a little busier, or
You've
we
got
should
to
upgrade
maintain
the
level of
playground
service.
or something like
Yep.
that. right?
it's stating your level of service. They can either, if you had excess capacity, then you could use those fees
Right.
because they're buying into your excess capacity for whatever you wanted.
So that's.
They're not
yeah.
restricted, but if
So
they're
maybe not.
building
I
new,
mean,
you know what I mean? That's for
So,
building those.
but like I
new.
said, we haven't like gotten that far, but those are things we should be thinking about.
I am curious a little bit about the idea of impact fees and developer donation. We're looking at, so you can only maintain a level of service of 7.5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, right? 7.5 acres plus whatever is on that acre, right? So if you were to look at what that costs on a person by person basis, household by household basis,
Doing
I'd
it.
be curious what that value is.
We're doing it with Zion,
Okay.
and hopefully we'll have it by midsummer.
And if so let's say it comes back at
It's a long
15
process.
It is a long process.
So say that one comes back at 1,500, for example,
Okay, I
would,
think you're high, but okay.
would
Yeah.
and I may be, very well be, would the requested donation, do you think that would go down to offset the difference, or?
I mean, I don't know. That's, we don't know. I do not see us charging this for indefinite. I honestly think if we can get something built like a place to play ball. So that the Taylor, West Weaver, Warren, West Warren resident could start some sort of rec program, you know, we're talking 5-10 years, right?
Yeah.
We're talking today, but reality of those things, even if we had the funding today, it's probably 5 years to get it done. So we could see that fee in a way going away or even getting reduced a lot. We are literally trying to get caught up to where we're at today, not the impact.
At least bring
No.
it from
The
7.5 up to
donation,
50.
right? Like, again, it's the people who come first are paying for
So,
it, right?
right, well, not necessarily. So what I see happening is this just transitions to the impact fee. Because once you have a $9 million park that
Well,
supports 3,500
Sure,
residents,
That's a
then
good
you have
cost.
the justification that that
That
will
is
be
an
your
impact.
impact.
That's a good way to say it.
And so I don't
This
know.
would require
when-
reevaluation.
Correct.
It
Right.
is. You can't,
So-
until you know what your fees are gonna be and what that level of
Yeah.
service is going to.
So it's just a per resident, and as we've got, you know, you're figuring the level of service, you've done that calculation, you said, okay, for 3,500 residents, which is about the average for the level of service that you want, it'll be about $9 million. And so, once you get more than $9 million, the next 9 million goes to the next part, so there's always going to be that
A reason
cost.
for that.
Possibly, but I like the fact that Joe's willing to state that it may or may not be, right?
Yeah.
Like, that- it's not like this is set, we're always gonna be trying to
It's
get
not
what we
set.
can, everything, you know.
Well,
We like
once-
it being open-minded.
Once you do an analysis, then, yeah, and in a deflationary market, yes, that would happen.
And we do not, another
That's it.
point I wanted to throw out there, I don't know how many parks they have in the chute. We don't want 100 parks. Costs, maintaining parks are expensive and time consuming.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and we don't have full-time employees, we won't be big enough to have full-time
They're probably not
employees.
gonna be utilized either, yeah.
That's true too. So, you know, that's another reason, like, we're kind of asking for the cash. I think, I don't know that I touched that earlier. So we do not want every developer to come in and say, well, I'll give you 5 acres. I'll give you 5 acres.
Cause
I'll
then
give
you
10
never
acres."
get that
Well,
40 acres
We'll
sports
never
park.
get the sports park that way, and we will have, our lawn mowing contract will
Oh,
go
yeah.
through the roof.
But it depends on what you can do with that 5 acres.
Well,
Exactly.
If you
yeah,
can
we-
sell
we-
that 5 acres, it's gonna be way better than the $7,500 per front door.
That's why I said we are entertaining, the 7,500 is our standard
Right,
response.
right.
If John was to come to us next week in one of our meetings and say, hey, instead of the $7,500 per lot, let's talk these 20 acres on the side of this development. We would entertain that.
And you've
But
got large.
we're not
enough-
gonna entertain someone coming in and saying, well, we paid the other parks district $2,000.
When are we required
Okay.
to do an impact?
Nice.
When are you required to do that analysis?
You
The
never are
impact
unless
fee
you charge
analysis?
it.
Yeah, I mean, just when you charge it,
Just to
right?
charge it.
So
I think they
before you
decide.
can adopt an impact fee, you have to do an impact fee analysis and an impact fee facilities plan.
Right.
The facilities plan is where you are identifying the facilities that you are planning on using that money for. So here's one of the rubs, and certainly one of the reasons I'm encouraging both park districts to be looking for other properties that they can get first right of refusal on, because at the point that you start asking for impact fees, you have to know what you're going to be spending that money on. And a bill was passed last year, the year before, and the state auditor is now coming down hard on the county comptroller to track every single project and every single dollar that, so we know exactly, so that developer knows that impact fee dollar went to pay for this park right here.
And I guess this is why I'm asking is because I don't see the value of rushing into an impact fee right now. I would personally not impose an impact fee until maybe even this park is built and work just through the
That's a
donation.
good point.
Because
A lot
then
more
the
flexibility.
developers get more flexible and the developers aren't like getting hit twice,
Yeah.
not having to negotiate anything. That's my only, until you have the level of service you want, I wouldn't do an impact fee study.
The good news is, we get a discount on our study because we're so small. So
I
we
think
actually
that-
don't have to do the IFFP.
I think
for
that
the residents.
from a developer standpoint, though, having an impact fee is something that they can bake into their calculations of whether a development can pencil for them. And so having that predictability is something that I know developers crave a lot.
Oh,
And we can
this-
create that in our rezoning process. If we're consistent in our rezoning, then it's just like the impact fee.
But the problem with the rezoning process is that it's flexible and negotiable.
It is.
And developers don't love that.
And
You
we're
don't
not,
have to deal with
we're
it.
trying not to call it a fee, we're trying to call it a donation, right?
Right, but that's, I guess that's the, back to the beginning, we're trying to standardize that process,
Yeah.
at least for these types of development. Flagship, Black Pine, those folks are different.
Yeah.
But so for these types of developments, we're trying to standardize the not fee.
Yeah.
And the process, both for an expectation, so they know ahead of time, they can pencil it in, and also for time's sake, right? They don't have to negotiate with us for 3 months, right? Like,
I like that you're standardizing the expectation, right? What you think. As a commissioner, I love that you have a plan. As a resident, I love that you have a vision. It's nice to know that there's what you are thinking ahead of time of what we're actually wanting, rather than, oh, we just need the space for a park. Well, what? And I like that you put it in, you have that vision.
So I think all of those are really important when we're defending the park district's fees to the commissioners who are going to be bombarded by developers. They have this, they know exactly what they're gonna spend this money on. If it's just money that's going into a coffer that may or may not belong to something at some point in time, with or without a plan, it's a lot harder for us to defend that donation. So I think you guys are going in the right
And
direction.
as a part of that, I don't know if I mentioned, with all of this information that we've gathered with the community and what we're doing, we're actually developing a parks master plan that's a document that we have, that we can hand to them and say, this is what you're supporting.
Okay. Good. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to allow developers to weigh in. We all know their answer is gonna be, we don't wanna do it. But-
We're more than happy to. Honestly, we expected some sort of feedback from developers. John walked out of the meeting after saying, okay, I don't know if he's heard back from his, his employers, and.
I've
And
heard about
Burns
it.
said, okay, and walked out of the meeting.
I've also heard about
And
it.
so neither one of them said,
No.
how about this?
Yeah.
Or anything. So that's where we're at. We told them what we wanted, they walked out.
So there's a couple of things that we're looking at, and Heritage is a good example up by the river, Cherokee the River project. A couple things we're looking at in terms of enforcing our general plan. That is gonna cost the developers a lot more than I think they ever really realized when they purchased the property at a steal of a deal. And I'm a little, so I'm a little concerned if that, I want to make sure that their margins are still equitable enough that they can turn the profit that they need to turn in order to actually do the development, because if they don't, then we're not getting parks, and we're also not getting any other that good.
And we're not getting the residents that require those parks.
That's
So
true.
you're not gonna have me shed a tear over that.
I won't expect any tears on that one, but I would like to hear from John,
I
and
would love to.
maybe some, not right now, just at some other time. I want to know, as long as they can meet their margins with this kind of stuff, if they know going into the rezone process what we're gonna expect of them. We were just talking a little bit about solar panels. Our general plan says, if you're gonna get if you're gonna get more than double the density you currently have under your zoning, you should do smart growth principles, which includes every building having solar panels. So I wrote that into the Heritage Development Agreement, and their response back to us fairly was, that's never gonna pencil. Well, in some cases, we want to see a pro forma, so we know, is it going to pencil or is it not going to pencil? I don't want to see every developer's pro forma though. I don't want to know what their margins are on every single one of them. And I want them to have the benefit of being able to lie to us and say, hey, our margin is so low on this, we're almost going to lose our shirt.
But your general plan says you should know, because you have asked for commensurate
Yes,
community investment.
that's right.
And commensurate is
We should
approximately
have
half
some, yep.
of their
It's,
profit,
yeah,
right?
well, I wouldn't say half, but yes, definitely something that
Define
benefits the
commensurate.
community. That's exactly right. And that is where it boils down to, is
Half.
defining commensurate.
That's what it's defined as, right?
Well, from a financial perspective.
Right. That's the tough part.
Yeah, are we talking finances, or are we talking about community investments? And so I agree with you. Let's give it to them as long as we can, as long as we're not pricing developers. I mean, the non-developers, right? Let's price them out because they're hard to deal with. But the real developers,
Yes, there you go. I agree.
Our goal is
I
to
wish everybody was
price them out. Our goal is to find that right balance that meets our community's needs.
Yeah, right.
And allows them to do what they need to do fairly, right? So it is about finding that balance.
We can't take away their profitability because like I said before earlier in this meeting, what you're gonna end up with is a bunch of partially started subdivisions that are not good for anything
Except we.
We want smart
So-
development, and we want good development,
Right.
right? But
It goes back to weeding out those.
Weeding out.
Out of curiosity, I tried doing this, pencil out the 420 acres to the 14,000 residents for flagship. I bet it's around $7,500.
They have to know what their purchase price is on that property.
No, I mean, the translation.
Yeah, okay.
Mathematically.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we're trying to be logical in that number. And when I tried to pencil out Black Pine, which is different, but I tried to just kind of say, okay, they gave us 34 acres plus $850,000. And I did the math based on that. It's still right around that same number, right? So it's like, that's the number we're asking for these big time developers.
Right.
The little time guys should be in the same
Follow
boat.
suit, yeah.
So
I like
it has
that
the
you-
same impact, right?
I like how you've done the math.
Whether you're big or not.
Are you willing to share, the numbers on the value or the cost? How did you come to the, cost on the 25 acre park? And do you have a
Yeah,
breakdown
I
of
mean, all we got is conversations with,
yeah, so I mean, I can share with you the email that I got from so I'm an architect. I work with a lot of landscape architects.
Good.
I work with a lot of construction cost estimators. It's what I do every day. So I just reached out to a couple and said, hey, what would the cost of this be?
Perfect.
And they gave it to us, and I'm happy to share that.
these are ballparks.
No, it's great.
These aren't statements of work, these
Ballpark
aren't
is-
solicitations.
Ballpark is
We
perfect.
didn't have the prints. Formal RFQ. Come on.
So when we were talking about the 2,000, the 2,500 for Taylor West Weaver, we were just going purely off of what they valued the cost of a 9 acre park, which was about $1 million. And so if you were to break that down, for a 9 acre park, that's about $2,000 per resident. But if we're talking about parks being well over $1 million for a 9 acre park, then we certainly should be looking at that for them as well.
I think you're low on your valuation of that.
Good.
I
I'm
mean,
glad to hear that.
go ask West Haven if you can buy 9 acres of their park for
For
less
that
than $1 million.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's just. The
They put $1
ground
million
itself
for the
is
topsoil in
a
it to
very
get it
high
grow.
value, not to mention the cost of improvements. But I try not to factor in a lot of the improvements.
I think you should.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, we do have other funding revenues, like Brad told me on the train. He's like, you have other options, and we do. And so we're trying really, like, this $7,500 isn't asking them to tie us up a perfectly packaged 100% improved park. This is just probably gonna get us the raw ground, maybe get somebody to come in there and level
Yeah.
it, right? But we would turn to ramp, we would turn to
Other funding.
other funds.
Vote to keep ramp on the ballot. It's up on the ballot this year.
I agree.
Throw a plug in there because ramp's done a lot of
Nobody
good.
misses that 10th of a 10th, but it sure comes in handy on the back.
It does.
I mean, in 1 year, you can see what ramp can do.
Yeah.
You know,
Are you guys comfortable coming to the planning commission, having the same conversation?
we are the planning
Is this not
commission.
the
Oh,
planning
I'm sorry,
commission?
county commission, yeah.
No.
Sorry.
I guess so.
Are you guys okay having the same conversation right now with these guys? No, county commission.
We're having this
Yes.
beat up again?
Charlie, I am,
Yes.
but I reserve the right to enjoy this company more.
Okay, good. That's all we ask. Okay. One of the things transitioning over to the discussion that Joe and I had and Lance and I have had in the past is when the county is looking at rezones, or whether it's a rezone or a subdivision, any kind of development, really hard for us to say, this is what is needed here or here without being that park district, right? Without knowing what the needs are. But it's also really hard for us to watch development go by and see opportunities lost. And so as we look at what the different districts are doing and what we look at developers doing and see what's fair and what's not fair, every single development is different. And so it's no wonder that 7,500 is hard to standardize because every single development is different. But going back to the conversation about the river, we've got an ordinance that says everything within 300 feet of the river cannot be built. Therefore, everything within 300 feet. Black Pine, well, Black Pine Road, yeah, 100 for Black Pine. But everything within 300 feet of the river is unbuildable, therefore, you're not looking at 75,000 an acre, right? You're looking at much, much less. You're looking at farming values at that point.
And I think we would take that into consideration. If John's group was riverfront and they said, hey, we're improving this trail per the Emerald Necklace requirement.
Yeah.
We would take that into consideration. We're happy to have that conversation. And they could say,
That's
here
an
is
open
this
space
value of this
amenity, even if
trail.
they're developing that.
And then that can come down, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm
So
saying.
we're happy to take that into consideration.
Okay.
But tell us something.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
run away and go to
it's-
the commission and say we're being unfair.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, it's
So-
the standard of negotiation, right?
Right.
Start
Actually,
high
really-
and come to a point in the middle that you both agree on. And that's where it goes back to my point. They're an entity. Let them make that negotiation.
Well, but then there's gotta be, not that you shouldn't be able to contact the commissioners, being elected officials, but there's gotta be some level of fairness from them backdooring them back around to the commissioners too.
Right.
And I think this is a good discussion to have, not just
Yeah.
with us. And I think that's to Charlie's point. Go have this same conversation with the commission.
We need to make sure the commissioners are on board, number one, with
Yeah.
7,500, and that's why we should go to them with numbers in a spreadsheet. And so breaking that down to cost estimates on a 25 acre park or whatever numbers you want to bring to support that. I think that will help them because they'll see that it's supported by the numbers under today's cost estimates. Because even some of the ones that I've run previously were under previous indexes, or 2022, 2020 costs, and everything's gone sky high since then.
I think you can get enough justification to back it up too. There's enough cities and other agencies out there that are building these parks that, have those cost numbers. It's gonna show you.
Yeah,
And that's
you have to
what-
find ones who are building them right now, right? Because the prices are changing so
Go to
fast.
Syracuse. They're building that whole big park out there along West Davis. I mean, there's plenty of them that are getting
Yeah,
built right now.
We could probably call
The-
that.
the formula that was brought up a few months ago in our other work session. I think we had a number of 22 or 27 or both of those numbers.
We're about $3,000.
Yeah. It never seemed like enough for me. Don't ask me why. I didn't have a formula to put with that. It did not seem like enough. To
Mhm.
be honest with you, in my mind, I think it should be about $10,000 per door.
Yeah. And that,
Because I think that that's what those costs really are.
that $3,000 was based on $1 million 10-acre park. So if we're talking different numbers for sure, then we need to be looking
Do you
at.
understand why we don't want another 10-acre park? You guys are getting a couple 10-acre parks?
We have a potential of getting a 34 to 44 acre park, actually.
The Blanchard property?
But actually, there's
Not
about
Don't say
a
that.
5 acre
The other
park
place?
and a couple of subdivisions that.
The 5 acre, that's what I'm saying, those are great, probably need those, but the problem is, we could build 50 of those, and we're not meeting the community needs.
Right.
Honestly, so
Right.
that's why,
You
when we
pick-
come in front of the commission, we're probably gonna come with each 45 acre park.
Okay.
Cost estimate.
When we're looking at properties along the Emerald Necklace or any other property that we see under the future land use map, let me turn this one up here.
Joe.
So anything that's along those green ribbons that are running through the area, anything that's along the darker green natural park areas, it's just gonna, by virtue of location, be more expensive there. And it's gonna have to be expected to be more expensive there, and developers are gonna have to calculate that into their pro formas, because we are expecting more of them. Now, if we just want to say 7,500 across the board and say park districts, do what you will with it, I think the commissioners will be a lot happier to see that if there is a cost breakdown based on a plan, based on specific locations, rather than just 7,500 across the board. However, starting with 7,500 for those who are not reserving those spaces within their subdivisions, I think is fine.
So
Yeah, I mean,
there's-
that's, again, that's what, I think we said that, we like, tell us you're doing
75 is
something
your base.
besides
Yeah,
stuffing
75
as many possible lots as the
Mhm.
ordinance will let you stuff on that acreage. Like, if you're telling us you're doing something else, all that's considered.
Those are things for
This
us
is
to
awesome.
Some
consider
of
and
those
for us
lots
to
are gonna be worth
negotiate.
more anyways.
We're not asking for this for every
So, I mean,
situation,
Can we hire
but
them
this is the baseline. And if you have something more to offer or you're developing other things, we want to have that conversation and we can change that.
And who is taking care of the trails, Charlie?
That's a good question.
I wanted to ask you that for days, maybe that's for one of our future meetings.
great time to ask it. It's on the agenda.
The same
Talk
people
about
that are
parks.
living on them. The same people that are living on them.
Well, I know we talked in the past, and the park district would probably be the right, I don't know who maintains it for Auburn.
Just on close.
The city.
Honestly, do you know, Brent?
The city.
So
Riverdale
is that-
maintains
So their
theirs.
recreation department
West
or their
Haven.
roads department or a combination?
I mean, they're
of the
public
two?
works. I mean, it's all in how they're split up. Ogden, it's gonna be their parks department is who maintains those. West Haven, same thing, but they're a small enough agency that
It's kinda
they're kind of all as one.
So it would be us until we incorporate, and then it would be some arm of the city.
Yeah.
Is that what we're?
If it
thinking?
broke up that way, I mean, they're just because it incorporates don't mean that you have to, you're an entity.
No,
You could keep doing it for as long as
We
you want.
can.
Yes.
I think the committee, I don't know, I might be on it, I might not be on it. I think the committee will dissolve. it.
No, and it makes total sense.
Across that road.
But
Let it become a city, right?
wait till it happens.
Yeah.
So.
But
So the cost to operate and
We could stay-
maintain all the little all the little trails within these subdivisions, I think it's gonna get hefty. I don't know for sure, because I haven't run the math. I'm going off of what, the former chair of, Taylor West Weaver mentioned, what Roger mentioned. He said that they are more than happy to take on operations and responsibilities for trails, but my suspicion is that they're looking at the green lines on this
I
map,
was about to say, so I'm in the same boat. I'm talking
regional.
along the river, along 7,500, along 900, the ones that are entering into these subdivisions, I would probably question us being.
Good.
And Flagship said it best, like that was a question I had for them, and they were like, hey, anything under an acre, like when I asked them.
the HOA maintains.
The HOA, and I would think
Doesn't
the
make
HOA is probably maintaining those trails.
Possibly.
They should, you would think.
Yeah. Now,
I
our
think that's-
ordinance says that it's the responsibility of the adjoining landowner.
And I don't know if these subdivisions are planning on HOAs, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we do need to look at. I mean, as we talk about parks, we often look at this plan of trails, and wherever there's going to be a park, we would love to see some kind of a trail that connects from that park to that trail, so that somebody could ride their bike, walk, jog, whatever, from park to park, and it creates a network.
Exactly.
Without
You
ever
want the
having to
kid
step
to
on
be
the
able to
road.
leave their front door, ride down, take a trail to the park or wherever they're going. It makes total sense.
I had an answer for the question you just asked. I can't remember what the question was now.
We were just talking about us maintaining probably the larger network of trails, and I don't know who's gonna go inside those.
So as far as inside the subdivisions right now, unless the developer makes it the responsibility of an HOA, it's the adjoining landowner, whether they like it or not, and whether they know it when they sign that.
That's
that
ordinance.
purchase.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's in ordinance right now. So it's
Who
just,
enforces that?
Iris,
it'll be Iris,
Alan.
also it won't be.
Can we
It's,
be involved in that
Yeah.
enforcement? If they're considered part of the Parks Trail Network or something?
you know what, if you guys,
We're not county now.
well, absolutely. So just kind of spitballing on that, I think that we can work out some kind of a mutual enforcement arrangement. It kind of depends on whose authority those are under. And so if you guys were responsible for those parks, let's just say through the subdivision plat, it was dedicated to you, to the park district, then in those cases, you can create your own ordinances, for the park district that says they have to do it and we're gonna come and call on you. Otherwise, right now, the ordinance says,
Our legal advisor on that
So,
kind of stuff.
right now, the ordinance says that it has to be dedicated either to a park district who's willing to take it or to the county as public space. If it's to the county, then the county ordinance.
You would be better off doing it yourself.
We would, I'm saying, I just don't know what our enforcement capabilities would be. I would wanna talk to our.
I think it would depend on what you want it to be.
It's the guy driving the lawnmower, he's gonna drive up each trail.
Have you
Well,
guys
for weeds.
No, we will contract maintenance for the large trails. That's what worries me about
That's what my-
contracting maintenance in front of people's houses and stuff.
Well, if they're in front of their houses, that's kind of typical, but a lot of these we want in the backyard. So you're expecting people to have like their backyard fence and you think they're gonna go on the other side of that backyard fence?
It's a hard sell. It is a
They're
hard sell.
not ever going to do that.
Not until they get those first couple of notices with some fines.
And they probably
I'll tell you
still
what
won't, because let me tell you why. You go through Weaver County and all the shenanigans that are going on, do you know how many notices I've seen? 0. So that ain't happening.
I don't
That's what it's gonna be,
disagree.
is that citizen that's supposed to take care of it's
Yeah.
gonna call and complain so much about it not being, that you'll just do it to get rid of the headache.
And that's entirely possible,
That.
that someone's gonna complain until the county fixes it. And that's fine.
That's what happened in Roy.
Yeah.
The citizens complained enough, even though it was their responsibility, that the parks are like, fine, they went one day and just cut all the weeds down along the fence line, so there you go.
I mean,
Leave us alone.
They have houses, on, it's not even the Highlands, it's South Ogden City, but it's where South Ogden City on Eastwood. I
Mhm.
don't know if you know, you go
Mhm.
through
Yep.
and they have all those townhomes that back Eastwood. But it's their backyard with a fence. They don't have any way to
They're never
access
going
that. They're
around
not
to
going
fix
to
it. Yep.
take their lawnmower and go
Right.
all the way around 4 blocks, right? It's just-
Cause then they're
So
gonna
you're-
get yelled
you're
at for
right.
putting a gate in.
You're right. So the
Nobody's putting a gate in.
I know, but if they did, then they'd get yelled at for putting the gate in.
Right.
Right. So the ordinance says what it says right now. How fair it is to those who are backing on those trails is a different story. And maybe those are the types of trails that we should be really looking at the park districts if they're willing to take it on.
That's, like front yard I get, but backyard,
Yes.
it's just not possible.
Right. It's a lot harder unless they have a gate, which honestly, I wouldn't mind every backyard having a gate onto that pathway. Not a car gate, but a man.
Wasn't that what they used to have? Downtown Ogden. In the alleys. At Grandpa Morelli's house, right?
Yep.
In the alleys. They literally had the trail running downtown Ogden in the backyards because that's where the irrigation and all the utilities.
Well,
went.
if you go
And
back,
every house had a gate.
yeah, but if you go back further than that, they had the alleys in the backyard to pick up the garbage. So the garbage did not go out in the front of the street, there was an alley in the back.
It was kind of nice.
So Salt Lake City is bringing back their alleys. They're doing everything they can to save the ones that they still own as pedestrian corridors. It's amazing how many they vacated. It's amazing how many Ogden City has vacated. But now they're looking at, well, I guess car isn't the savior of the world, and we need to find a way to make this work for people, especially as they get more dense and start raising their single family and building stacked apartments and condos and stuff. Okay, up on the screen, I've got the future land use map. It's a little fuzzy. It's not perfect. It's kind of granular, but you can tell what it is. You've seen it enough times. You've got the green ribbons that have the trails that aren't intended to be road adjacent, excuse me. And then as you look at the streets, the white streets and the black streets and the gray streets, each one of those ones are supposed to have a adjacent pathway on them as well. And so as we look at those pathway connections, and then we also look at everywhere where there is a trail, a park symbol or a trailhead, we start to see a theme emerging on good locations where parks could potentially go. We asked GIS to flesh out the, number one, the recorded subdivisions, and then number two, any parcel that's over 10 acres right now, just so we could look at them in the context of that ribbon and find where are some really good locations for parks. So the red line, or the red on this map, those are existing subdivisions. I don't think they have every single one of the existing subdivisions represented here. We'd have to go back in and check. The blue are, I just started to outline existing proposed subdivisions or rezones. I haven't finished it yet. But as we could see that, we could start to see things populating. And so this right here, I colored the whole thing green for the Taylor Landing Park, the 35-acre park that they're going to be getting with Taylor Landing rezone. This is Halcyon, the 10-acre Halcyon.
Man, you're sure talking high on that.
But
We gotta get it approved first.
well, I won't recommend approval, so you guys decide what you want to do with it, unless they put that property aside for the park district. Because it's on the plan, right? Let's go back to the plan.
Right. Okay.
The whole thing is green, including the property that they want to put houses on. But I think in order to get them, the park district, the substantial amount of that, we could probably let them put a few houses over here in order to do that. And Heritage says that it pencils for them. So with that in mind, we can kind of start to see some themes. I mean, here's a ribbon in here. Let me turn that up just a little bit. So, I mean, let's just give an example. Maybe here's a good spot for a park. One thing that the county could do, that the park district could do, is start looking at these kind of locations. Let me turn on some parcel lines.
Where are you?
I am on,
Oh, you're in West Weaver. You're at 4100 and 900.
yep, I think that's
That's the
400.
stake center right there. Or, no, that's 900.
This,
You can see the school.
oh, school, okay. So we can see, here's some space right here that may work. You can kind of see the parcel boundaries. Let me turn those on a little bit. What we could do, and what we probably should do at some point, is adopt an ordinance that says every subdivision, whether it's part of a recent rezone or not, is responsible for some kind of a park and recreation contribution. If they've already donated through the rezone, then maybe it's not a non-issue. If they haven't donated, they definitely do need to do something. The current subdivision code says that they're responsible. The county can require, and it's the planning commission can require, them to donate up to 3% of their property. Well, 3% is nothing when we're looking at these small 10-acre parcels. The green, I don't know if I told you, the green parcels are parcels that are 10 acres or greater. And so maybe if this parcel were to come in and be proposed to subdivide this parcel and that parcel, maybe there's a park that can go right here and be shared. That way, when you're going to this guy who's got, what is that, 10 acres? Almost exactly. Yeah, 10 point, my face was close to the screen. So let's say this is 10 acres here. Instead of saying we want 5 acres from you, guy who owns 10, maybe we want an acre and maybe it's here. Yeah. But if we do that, the very next step is gonna need to be for the park district to go to these guys and maybe these guys and get first right of refusal to fill that park out.
I like the idea. I guess one thing that when I was talking to folks about this, and you had asked me to like earmark some spots.
Mhm.
One of the people I talked to about it, the landowner, was like, well, the only issue he has with that is if it gets earmarked somewhere as a park, it scares investors away from buying the ground. So I just want to be careful. I like that we have this emerald ribbon and we're conceiving, but I still almost feel like the developers kind of still drive it by where they're willing to invest, and then we kind of say, then we're piggybacking with them.
So when it comes to, I agree with you, when it comes to the developability of the property, maybe what we do is in our ordinance say if there's already a first right of refusal on the property, then there's the skids have been greased, whatever that grease is. So that doesn't take away from their ability to benefit from the park.
I want to ask, so does it?
I missed the conversation.
No.
So I apologize.
He's eating. So the conversation is, if you put a first right of refusal on a parcel for the parks district. Okay, to a property. But their contention is that they'll lose value in that property because it's got a first right of refusal to the parks district. How does that look to an investor or a developer?
True.
Because it accomplishes what needs to be accomplished in the area for development. That's why I'm asking.
If the purpose is to go and develop that, and then you have first right of refusal in the sense of if something does happen, I mean, people are always gonna argue against any kind of giving rights away and say that diminishes the value, but if that's the intent for the developer upfront, I don't see that being.
So when it's first rights of refusal, does that mean that to go to parks, does that mean that the parks wouldn't have to pay its value?
We're gonna pay the value.
They would just have the first option to buy it.
Yeah, so I mean, why, as a developer,
So-
I wouldn't care.
Yeah, I would.
Well, right, but would you make an offer knowing?
Oh, I already got an automatic buyer.
The triggers are,
Exactly.
You
or
know,
would you offer the guy next door?
Well, what
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm saying, would you, so say we earmark that 10 acres. We have a contract in place with that landowner, right of first refusal. If you knew about that, would you offer the guy next door money for his 10 acres, or would you offer that guy, would
Yeah.
even bother, right?
Well, and this is one of the issues that we're gonna find one way or the other, because as soon as the landowner knows they have a sure buyer,
That's another.
it's a lot easier to play with those numbers,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's what we talked about in our committee meeting last night, when we talked, I brought your.
But it's still only going to bear market value.
Yes, they're still gonna,
At the end of the day,
no matter who buys it.
Wouldn't overpay.
I mean, they don't have to, if these guys have first right, well, if they go to them and say, okay, they just sold this ground for 80,000 an acre, I want 80,000 an acre. They say no, then guess what? It's void, they can sell it to a developer.
It doesn't matter.
So it's a,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
in my, it's a mute.
In theory, it should
It's
work.
kind of-
does it
It
take
does.
away the right of the current landowner of being able to negotiate a higher price? Does that make
With
sense? So like,
the
if I'm a developer, if I'm a landowner and I got 2 developers, I can usually say, well, I want this much, and they can.
They could come in and say they want $1 million an acre to the parks, and the park says, yeah, right, we ain't gonna do it, then that
That's the
deal is
other
gone.
one.
You always
So
get the high.
it's not taking anything away from the landowner.
And there would have to be something way more negative than a park going in there. for
Right.
Anything to
Exactly.
degrade the price of that property.
But the thing, I mean, it goes back to it too, and correct me if I'm wrong, your selling point goes up
Yeah.
if
you've
you
got a
have
park.
those amenities close to
That's
it,
where I
right?
was, that's why I asked the question. You had your opportunity too late. Sorry.
Exactly, you just said the point, it's more marketable whether you build it or not, knowing that that's coming and people, you're gonna say, look, whether the Parks District, I mean, it'd be better if they owned it at the time, there's a future park right next to that.
Yeah.
Well, your subdivision just made it more marketable because you have a park and walking distance.
And that was what I expected that you would have said, but you didn't hear the conversation, so you weren't prepared. But yeah, that's what I would expect.
Okay, we beat this one to death.
One of the reasons, Brent, I wanted to have part of this conversation is with windmill number one, Alley Acres. One of the park district's initial request was we would like 5 acres. That was a 20-something acre property, and so you're talking about a fourth of their land.
That was you guys?
Yeah, that was Roger Heslop when he was the chair, which didn't, a quarter of the land, that kind of seemed a little unfair in the context of the whole. And so they agreed to a smaller park area that would be HOA owned in exchange for reduction in donation or whatever, which I think was a really fair way to go about it. However, if the park district could have said, you got 20-something acres, we want 1 acre, and we're gonna pick up 1 acre next door, and the next door, for a total of 5 or 10 or 20, that becomes a totally different conversation. Because then we could start mapping it, we could start putting it on a master plan, the county can start zoning it for parks, which would make it more affordable for the park districts to buy. So there's some opportunities there.
We need to keep working on that.
No, they're not gonna come in and ask for a rezone. How's the county gonna rezone it unless they ask for it to go to open space?
County has the authority to do that.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but then that kind of
That's gonna-
contradicts
That's kinda
what we were
rough.
talking about. It takes value away from that property for the first right of refusal.
Yeah.
It takes value away
How's
from
that?
selling it. That's
How's that fair to
accurate.
the land?
Yeah, I don't think that's fair to the landowner.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a commission that's gonna approve down zoning something to open space.
Well, you may see it, because we've, actually, I'll give you one, the Black Pine. We downzone property to open space in Black Pine.
But there was an exchange, look what they got next to it.
So, that's.
If you're
the
coming
conversation.
into your acre here, that guy's gonna throw a fit when you downzone that acre unless he's asking for a rezone.
The
Unless-
donations go up so
Yes.
that they pay fair market value.
I don't mind the rezone coming so the taxes go down and all of that stuff, but as far as the value to the guy that owns that property,
Yes.
that's not fair.
Let's remember who we're all here for, and that's every.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase.
Charlie's like, oh no.
Yeah.
You opened Pandora's box, you should have stopped when I said.
Oh, Charlie, you're out.
Let me rephrase. I would never
You're on my
suggest,
shit list again.
I would never suggest we just downzone property. But in consideration, I would definitely.
Yeah, in consideration, I agree 100%.
So up on the river, the recommendation I'm gonna give to the county commission is that 300-foot buffer is open space zone.
Right, 'cause
Which
it's
it
not
should
valuable,
be.
it's not valuable to begin with, the landowner shouldn't be able to.
And they've already
take
negotiated with the
value.
park district to take it on and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Taylor Landing. We're going to we're gonna estimate Taylor Landing density based off of all that acreage, right? But then once it comes down to the actual rezone, we'll downzone the open space. And so
Yeah,
this is,
Yes.
That's a negotiation.
sorry, maybe I should have started.
Taylor Landings is not one to negotiate.
Your property, worth nothing. Your property.
Taylor Landing's property is already worth nothing.
I gotta be honest with you, a few years ago, there was a entity.
Do that, get him out of here.
In the Ogden Valley who asked for property to be downzoned. It was the land trust that like, can't you just downzone this so we can afford to buy it? Yeah,
That seems.
doesn't mean that we should. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anything else for us, gentlemen?
No, I think we're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great discussion.
Thanks for
Joe,
being on.
thanks.
Thank you.
Great discussion. Lance, you got 15 minutes.
I'm doing fine, 'cause I'm gonna tell you.
Aren't you here to talk to us?
No.
Oh, perfect, the meeting's over. I thought you were here to talk to us.
No.
we wanted to make sure that they were here for part of the conversation.
Can I take that 10 minutes? to
No.
present? I have a question for you.
For me?
Yes.
Oh, no.
In the meeting?
Not in the meeting, not meeting related, it's water stuff that I'm struggling with.
Got a question for you guys.
So,
Outside the meeting.